I'm Charlie Erickson with Hispanic Link News Service. I apologize for being late, and you may already have covered this, but I doubt it. First of all, I got a couple of questions. One would be bilingual education and the refusal of most school districts to adopt to bilingual education as a full-time responsibility. Do you folks favor that? Do you see that of value? Secondly, for the past 50 years, the Hispanic student dropout rate nationally, in any municipal area you want to look at, any school district you want to look at, remains at about 50% or worse. Horrible. Do you guys have anything you think could actually change that? Are there certain things that you brought up that I didn't hear about that could actually have an impact to move that needle forward a little bit to get something done, whether you're talking about class actions by a bunch of Hispanic groups or what? What are you going to do different to actually change that 50% figure?
Respond?
Thanks.
You turn at me. Well, through the Campaign for High School Equity, as we mentioned, we concentrate on high schools and high school students and students of color. And with regard to Hispanic students, the partners at the campaign are concentrating also on English language learners. So you mentioned bilingual education. We concentrate to make sure that proper services are being provided to English language learners, especially those in at the high school level. And with regard to high school dropouts, actually some of us have done extensive work on the high school dropout issue, especially the Alliance for Education for all students of color. And we actually, MALDEF, through the National Women's Law, with the National Women's Law Center, had a report out on Latinas and the dropout factor that they have. And so we have policy priorities provided, and I believe we have the report outside.
You have an answer to the question, anybody, as to what can actually be done that's different?
I think, Charlie, that we outlined a lot of things that could be done. I think stemming the dropout rate isn't a matter of just having specific dropout programs in place, although that's important in many situations, but it's a matter of changing what we do for all students. And in talking about better prepared teachers and higher standards, we're going to make a difference. And I think in places where you've seen specific attention to that, you've seen the dropout rate change. So I do believe it's a broad answer that encompasses all our recommendations in addition to specific dropout programs.
Yeah, I would encourage you to take a look at the Plan for Success, and there are a few specific sections, including one that says reforming, reinventing the American high school or something along those lines. The research shows that it can be done. And two, the research shows that you have to do a whole lot to make it happen. So, for example, New York City broke down about 20 very large, low-performing high schools. They created about 200 small schools, including 120 what they call small schools of choice. And over a 6-year period, they increased the graduation rate on average by about 7 percentage points, which is about a third of the graduation gap between between students of color and white kids. What they did and what's recommended in the Plan for Success is a series of things. You start out by doing a very robust diagnostic analysis of the problem. So it's not enough to know what the low graduation rate is. You have to know exactly what's causing the problem. And the types of students that are in the class, that are in the school. And then you tailor interventions specifically to those kids. It has to be very personalized, but there are some broad categories of activities that generally work. So it's things like teacher and leader effectiveness through really research-based professional development and ongoing professional development, not just, a few days out of the summertime. It's looking at your use of time, making the curriculum more relevant and rigorous. They're providing social supports. There's a slew of activities that research have shown work when you put them in combination, and they're included in the Plan for Success. So I'd encourage you to take a look there.
I wanted to respond very quickly. I'm from the National Indian Education Association, and this issue of engaging students, particularly Native American students, is is I think a strength that I want to indicate for the group here. And the strength is that although we all stand together addressing these issues, we do understand that there are particular ways that you need to be able to deliver your programs into communities. And one of the things that is especially effective for Native Americans is this idea of cultural alignment. And the reason that's so important is that the stated policy of the United States was to force the assimilation of the native people of this land. And when that forced assimilation occurred, the idea basically was who you are is the wrong person. You need to be somebody else. And when you do that, what you're basically doing is destroying, I think, the most essential ingredient of a human being, which is who they are. What is their identity? So one of the things that we are doing, and again, we are a coalition working together, but we all have our own independent individual strategies. One of the strategies that we're using is to try to make sure that in every piece of legislation that goes forward, there is this particular intention to be able to support this concept of identity by how it is we design our programs, by how it is we assess our programs, by how it is we train our teachers. And this even gets down to this whole idea of assessment. Sometimes in some of our schools, we have found that introducing native language is particularly powerful for uniting that community and reestablishing the sense of identity. The difficulty is that all the testing is being done in another language, which is in English, even though the long-term strategy is for these children in those schools to get to the 12th grade, you know, in a bilingual situation. So there are a number of issues that need to be addressed, but I think that what I wanted to do is to demonstrate to all of you that although we stand united on these concepts, there are particular ways that each of our groups react to the particular circumstances. And again, we're now visible where we were invisible because of the data and the disaggregation. How it is we do that.
Hi, I'm Lara Kaufman from the National Women's Law Center. I wanted to jump off of what everyone's talking about in terms of disaggregation, which I think is great, and talk a little bit about cross-tabulation of data, because I think to ensure full transparency, which is going to be critically important going forward, the data will need not only to be disaggregated, but also cross-tabulated so you can see what's happening for smaller subgroups of students. The data that is just reported by race, for example, is of limited value because we know, for example, there's an assumption that girls of color are doing fine because girls overall are doing better than boys, but it's not true. Girls of color are not doing fine, and they have some unique needs that we need to address, and having that data further broken down, I think, will be very helpful. And the same goes for boys of color.